everyone. Mike Domagowski back again. I have the privilege of being the president of the Michigan Elementary and Middle School Principals Association. And today's MEMSPA Minutes video series, I'm very excited and thrilled to have Dr. Terah Cambers with us today to talk a little bit about the middle level. She is an associate dean and also the professor of educational leadership at Michigan State University. She's going to be talking at our middle level conference in Grand Rapids on February 25th, 2022. So welcome, Dr. Cambers. It's really great to meet you and see you on the Zoom and spend about 5 or 6 minutes with you.
I'm super excited. Thanks again, Mike, for the invitation. I'm so thrilled to do this interview and I'm looking forward to the conference in February.
Yeah, we are super stoked for the conference. Always awesome to go out to Grand Rapids, meet with middle level principals, see what's going on in their buildings and gain some ideas from not only just principals, but people like you, speakers, and a lot of the cool things that are happening. So for the people listening or watching this, can you tell them a little bit about yourself or maybe a little bit of your work with MSU?
Yeah, that would be great. So at MSU, I have really two roles. One is as the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, as you said. What's really great about that for me is that my role is to provide a safe, welcoming, supportive community for all of our faculty, staff, and students. I really love the way that that is put together, and I take that mission really seriously and trying to cultivate a really strong community. And I know that that's something that we have in common. So that's a part of the part of that job. And then my other role is as a professor of educational leadership. I work with in-service and aspiring school leaders. I served for a few years as our director of our EDD program before I became the associate dean. And then I also, although this isn't related to my MSU work, I'm also serving on the school board in East Lansing. So that's another important piece of my identity too. But another important aspect of my work at MSU is obviously my research. It's one of the reasons probably that you've invited me to speak at the conference. I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but in order to understand the research that I do, you have to kind of understand a little bit about me. But I grew up in Minnesota. I went to a school actually that's very similar to East Lansing, where I'm on the school board in terms of the demographics. But while the school was overall very racially diverse, fairly diverse, my advanced placement and honors courses were not diverse. And I really came to see myself as an anomaly. I think my teachers saw me that way too. It wasn't until much later, grad school, that I came to understand that my experiences were not unique, that many other racially minoritized students could relate to what I experienced, and that it really wasn't about me. At the time, I couldn't really see the role of the system different from my own experiences so I just internalized it. And the same with my students, or with not my students, with my teachers. Mm-hmm. So my research now focuses on what we as educators can do for school not to be so costly for racially minoritized students. That's what I'll be focusing on in my keynote, my work on what I call racial opportunity cost. And so then the next question is, what is racial opportunity cost? The definition that I use, the work that I'm doing, is about it's the cost of success for high achieving students of color. It results from navigating expectations of what academic success is supposed to look like. Often those expectations are modeled on white or middle class cultural standards, and so mirroring them can be difficult for students of color. And then on the other side, it can be difficult for educators to see how those performative expectations are racialized. They seem normal to us because we've been immersed in them our whole lives. So the work that I'm doing, my job is with racial opportunity costs, is to help make those things more clear, like add a lens for us to be able to see how those expectations may be creating additional costs for students of color.
Awesome. And you know what, we're very excited to have you speak at the middle level conference specifically to that. I mean, one of the things that we are working on at MEMSPA right now is our strategic plan. And I mentioned to you, right before we started recording this, that, diversity, equity, inclusion is an important part, or is the part of our strategic plan. So it works perfectly with you coming to the middle level conference with your expertise and the research that you have to talk about that with us, to not only educate us, but work with us on how we can all be better on that. So We appreciate that. So can you talk to me a little bit about that middle level conference, or your interest in the middle level? Me being a middle school principal, I'll be there with my assistant principal. I know there will probably be 100 other people there at the middle level. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I also have a soft spot for school leaders, obviously. And despite what I shared about my own experiences as a student, I really don't blame my teachers or the principal of my high school for what I experienced. I actually now realize that we, as teacher and school leader preparation programs, have done pretty an inadequate job of providing the appropriate learning for those who want to be educators. And if the preparation programs aren't teaching these topics, then how do school leaders and educators know about them? And then how can they be expected then to make sure that their students are aware of these issues? And so um, that middle level too is where we have the most opportunity to make appreciable change. And I know there's a lot of focus on the high school level where we
Yep.
see the most significant outcome disparities, test score gaps, for example. But we know, that the stage for these things are set much earlier. And so if we can make substantive changes earlier in the pipeline, then we can take advantage of that ripple effect, I guess, that will resonate across the pipeline. Well, and plus I have a fifth grader. He's headed off to middle school next year. So that's another kind of soft spot I have for this middle level and the age that these students are that the folks attending this conference will be working with. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited.
That's great. And the fact that you can have a fifth grader is perfect. There might even be some upper elementary principals and leaders there as well, because we've invited them. So that's exciting as well. So perfect opportunity for perfect keynote, honestly, for what we're looking for. Part of our strategic plan, the right, in the middle of the things that we're handling. And I truly believe in what you just said, the earlier in the pipeline we can get these things instilled, the better we are in the long run. If we're starting with 11th grade, 12th, in that high school age, it's a little late. It's hard because those things, some of those things and ideals are already instilled. The earlier we go, the more opportunity we have to develop and advance. So us here at MEMSPA being mostly K-8, there's that opportunity, which we're really excited about. So before we sign off, any messages for the school leaders or MEMSPA principals or these middle level leaders before we meet you at the conference? Any message that you'd like to send to us?
Well, of course. First of all, most important of all is thank you. The words are inadequate, I think, but they still matter. It's so important to say them. I don't have the full up close perspective on all of the challenges that you all are navigating right now, but my seat as a school board member gives me maybe a better perspective than most. And I know how hard everyone has been working and have been working since, well, the pandemic began, but certainly before that, to make sure that staff and kiddos and everyone is getting what they need. I just have so much gratitude. But with respect to my role at the conference and what I want to talk about, I guess the most important message that I'm coming from is that I'm coming from a place of wanting to be on the same team. I'm not coming as like expert to tell you all what you need to be doing. I'm really in the trenches trying to, tackle the same issues that you all are, how to best support students, all students, but particularly those from racially minoritized backgrounds. I've worked with teachers and school leaders long enough to know that, well, I've never met anyone who didn't love kids or didn't have a sincere desire to support their learning. But that doesn't mean that we always know what that means or that we haven't inadvertently done damage to that intention because we didn't have all the information that we needed to have. And so this is all really hard work. If it were easy, we would have solved these issues long ago. But I think there is a gap between the academic work that has been done on these issues of what we today call, diversity, equity, inclusion, but with how that translates into practice. And that's part of the work that I'm trying to do, hoping to do, to make what are sometimes complicated terms in academia, like critical race theory or institutionalized racism, and help translate those into something that's understandable. Like I said earlier, to provide educators that new lens or that perspective that helps illuminate these issues more clearly. I wish I could say that I have all the answers. I certainly don't, but I have some important pieces to the puzzle and I'm excited to learn together.
Good. Yeah, and we are as well. And we're very excited to have you keynote once again for those listening and watching February 25th. I believe it starts around 6 p.m. right there in Grand Rapids. So get registered. It's so easy to register. Just go to MEMSPA, MEMSPA.org, and then go to events. Right down, I think the 5th or 6th one is the Middle Level Conference, and you can register. The fee is not huge, but the experience is huge. So we hope that you register for the conference, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. I'm looking forward to meeting Dr. Terah Cambers. Dr. Chambers, thank you for being on the MEMSPA Minutes today. And thank you for keynoting our middle level conference as well. So it's very nice to meet you. Yeah, it's very nice.
You as well.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you, and looking forward to meeting you on February 25th. I'm sure we'll have some good conversation. So
absolutely.
So for everyone listening and watching, we're going to sign off now. Check out the MEMSPA Minutes video series on YouTube by subscribing to MEMSPA TV. But we will see you at that middle level conference with Dr. Terah Cambers and so many middle level leaders. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Bye.